So through chapters 5 through 8, I learned a lot about communication, but more about the language that we use to communicate with and just how important it is. So in chapter 5, we learned about language and how it's symbolic and subjective. And that meanings are found not in the exact words that we use, but in who said these words. So, for example, my boss, he's just a genuinely friendly, talkative person. So when he's talking to me about the man he saw at the supermarket or his dog or the cat outside, I know he's not trying to hit on me. He's just genuinely a very talkative individual. I also learned that language can be powerless or powerful. With powerless language, you're more hesitant, more unsure of what you're saying. And powerful, you're more assertive and direct in your language. There can also be ambiguous language, which means like you could say something and it could have two meanings, or it could be interpreted in two different ways. There's also language responsibility, and that the we language tends to take responsibility for both the sender and the receiver. And that finally what I did learn in chapter 5 is that research shows that men tend to talk more about themselves than about others, which I found very interesting because I thought it was the exact opposite. In chapter 6, I learned that behavior has value in our communication, in our nonverbal communication, and that this nonverbal communication is rooted in biology and is usually unconscious. So I feel like I do know what this means because my face tends to react quicker to what people say than what my words do. So nonverbal language can be ambiguous, where it can be like unconscious. So even though you look disturbed or confused, you may not be. You may just be thinking about what they said, which I've gotten before too. Or that maybe you have like just a resting face where you're not really thinking about anything, but you look mad or upset, and that's not the case. Usually that's just your face relaxed. Functions of nonverbal communication are to create and maintain relationships, regulate interactions, influence others, and conceal true feelings. I have personally concealed my true feelings with nonverbal communication by saying I'm okay when really I was upset. Types of nonverbal communication are your body movement and your face, your posture, your gestures, your voice, and your distance, which can say a lot about how you really feel than what you're saying to the person. In chapter 7, we learned a lot about listening and the different types of listening, such as like silent or supportive or questioning or evaluating and advising. A big components of listening are hearing, attending, which is like mentally being there and listening to what they have to say, remembering and responding. I think responding is the important one, but like one of the most hard ones because you have to usually think about what you say before you say it, which isn't a lot of time because you don't have 5 minutes to respond to people in person. So thinking on your toes is always important. Another thing I learned about listening was that the difficulties I had with empathy when I've never experienced whatever the person who is talking to me is experiencing. I've never experienced those things, so it's hard for me to be empathetic because I can't picture myself in their position because I've never been there, but I try my best to imagine how I would feel if I was in that position. And another difficulty I had was advising. I always want to support my friends, and I feel I'm very supportive in my listening. I'm always attentive, and I don't text when they talk to me or anything, but I don't want to ever tell them to do the wrong thing or give them the wrong advice and then it not work for them, but it worked for me. So I'm trying to work on giving the best advice that I can, or saying that I just don't have advice and I don't want to wrongly advise them. In chapter 8, we learned about emotions, which are like the nonverbal reactions we have that also may cause emotions. Such as in the book it says smiling might make you happier, and where frowning actually made you more uncomfortable and upset. Um, Verbal expression of emotion helps you manage your emotions better. So if you tell somebody that you are upset, it may relieve you a little to talk about it and to engage in conversation about why you're upset. And influence that shape how well we communicate feelings are also like effective of our emotions. And personality, culture, gender, social roles, and social media, and how emotions are transferred from person to person may also affect your emotions. But something I found really important about learning about emotions was the guidelines for expressing emotions and how recognizing your feelings when you know just exactly how you're feeling, you can actually react better to it. So if you know you're upset, you can react better to being upset. Whereas if you don't know how you feel, it may be hard to react to it. And it's not only just reacting, but it's reacting in the best language at the most appropriate place and the most appropriate time to express these feelings. And then also taking responsibility for these feelings. I never realized how much went into our emotions and how we feel. But that's everything I learned from chapter 5 to chapter 8 in a small little nutshell.